is my speed. I like that. It's nice and calming and all of this. But I learned recently about this high intensity interval training, also called burst training. And the way it works for me is this. I do 15 minutes total, so it's totally easy to do before I get going for the day. In 3 steps, your warm up, your workout, your cool down, and then the hard parts, the meaty, really juicy, hard bits are 20 seconds only. And they say you can do anything for 20 seconds. I'll explain a little bit more later, but the idea is that it's effective. It gets you really working hard. For some bodies, it works your body burning fat for up to 24 hours after you do that workout. And it's efficient, right? So I do several minutes of warm up, I do several minutes of workout, and then I do a few minutes of cool down, and I'm ready to start my day or go about my business. Yes? Does that sound good to you, Matthew?
I am. I'm getting exhausted just listening to that, but sounds good, good, good.
Right. So this is an interesting idea to me because it's so new and intense in my life. And recently I came back from this conference that we actually both attended, and perhaps some people on the line as well, in Dublin. It was a conference of interculturalists, so professionals in the field want to get together to do what we do and do it together, right? Love fest, if you will. We had in that 3 days that we were together, I counted 125 sessions available to us. Did you know this? Did you
It
attend
was.
all these?
It seemed like a lot of the time. Yes, I didn't attend all of them.
Yes. It was a lot, and I attended as many as I could, and of course, the socialization is part of it. Although I wasn't feeling like I wanted to feel in the course of these days. I wanted to get more depth, more rigor from my experience, right? So our field is often about these facts, right? This very cerebral experience, right? We're getting at behavioral modification. We want people to change their behavior to get it different and hopefully better results and sustained results. Yeah. It's not about being perfect. It's about getting better. It's a process. It's a journey. All these metaphors that we throw in. And again, in Dublin, we were together to endeavor in that on our own, right? I like to say that it's about personal choice and personal change. So in the course of my trainings, when we're talking about, the other people, the other client, the other whoever, right? The organization and when it will change and how it will grow, if only if. I like to remind people that it's really about where they start. It's about personal choice and personal change, right? It needs to be owned. It needs to be individual as much as this is the collective work that we're doing, right? And how do we get to that? So I had this idea when I was writing my blog. Every month, well, or nearly every month, I sit down and I try to figure out what can I share with people that I'd experienced that might be of interest to others as well, or how can I share something common in a different kinds of way, right? So that's what this high intensity workout or this burst training workout is about. I started with that idea, very intense in my life. Probably I was in tender pain as I was sitting down on my couch at my computer to type out my ideas here. And I'm working out, as it says here, this knot of an original idea, right? How can I use the metaphor of this burst training to get into a workout for the mind, right? A workout for the heart that can really be relevant and resonant in the training rooms that we work within. So this idea is called, so far, Culture Burst. And there's my great muscle there that I'm building. I'm about 3 weeks into this workout. And it's pretty hard, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it as I tell you about this idea. The intent is to get her done, is to get it over with, is to get that good, pure workout and move through it and move on, right? The design of it is, again, these 3 parts, like I explained before: warm up, workout, cool down, yes? And what if we could do that in training as well? Usually in training, and Matthew, you'll be familiar, and some others on the line as well, usually in our training, the status quo, if you will, is we're going to spend an hour and a half or more, right, going through this slope of process, introductions, ground rules. Perhaps we're going to talk about feedback and how we like to give and receive feedback, what our preferences are there. Perhaps we're going to talk about uh, why we're here, training objectives, all this good stuff, right? This warm up that's quite prolonged. And then when we get to the meat, those juicy bits of that workout, right? We're halfway into day one, right? That's where people might be feeling the intensity. My suggestion is that we feel the intensity a lot more quick than we usually do, right? That we have that impact that I'm feeling, at least, in these culture bursts, these workouts that I'm doing outside at the beach or in my house, that we have that in the training room instead. Are you with me so far, Matthew? I want to just
Yes,
check in on
I'm
whether I'm
getting
being
it.
clear to everyone.
It's like everything is revealing itself. I think that last point was the critical point. The application of one scenario in a different world. Loving it, loving it, loving
Wonderful,
it.
wonderful, right. So for example, we go into a training, yes? Now, don't expect to, you know, wade in there nice and slow and take your coffee. You get your coffee ahead of time. You come in ready to work. We do only the nitty gritty that needs to be done, right? I'm talking less than half an hour's time. We get right in there. We prepare you, just in terms of a few simple ideas of what you're going to do. And this kind of culture burst training would have to be totally customized to whatever space we're doing it within, right? So you're going through a merger and acquisition, or you're going through, I don't know, serving a new body of clientele, or you're going through embarking on a new leadership platform for people to develop their professional skills. We want them to really get into, we want them to learn the skill, but we also want them to experience this, right? And it's my belief in the 15 years or so, and yes, I did start as a young girl, that I've been doing this work, that we really are intellectualizing things, right? When we need to be feeling things, that people can make sense of things, but that doesn't necessarily inspire them towards change, towards that behavior modification, towards that shift that really works better for them and for their teams and their organizations, etc. Right? So if we could feel more in this, I think that we could get further, right? So it's about choose your pain. When we were at this conference in Dublin, George Simmons, who is witty as well, said something about culture, about if you don't know what your culture is, think about where your pain is. Point you've had. I really like that. I'll just throw that little tidbit in here. But here in this context with culture burst, it's about choosing challenges that build competence, right? So this would be, for instance, a choose your own adventure, right? These would be pre-designed activities, right, with intensity, that you can help build relevant competencies, right? So maybe, Matthew, it's you and I, or maybe whoever on the line, it's you and I sitting face to face. And a coach of mine, a professional development coach, life coach, did this with me, Kevin Johnson, I don't know, a few years back. He asked me to think of these 4 basic emotions, at least as he defined them, right? And they were something like joy, pain, sadness, fear, right? These primal ones, right?
Yeah.
And you could even say that these are the things that we're feeling in the workplace, or when we're volunteering, or whatever we're doing, however, wherever, whatever space we may use this in. This is what we're feeling as well towards other people or with other people. Yes, it gets down to that. Is it really about they didn't do the deliverable, or is it about the fear of not getting that promotion, right? Is it really about the the person not sending the email in the correct format, or is it about you're afraid that something else is going to happen, or you don't know about that culture, or you don't know where they're coming from. This generation is all the way out at sea, and you don't know how to catch a line to them, right? So if we base it to these very primal emotions and we think about how we can tap into those, maybe we sit like Kevin and I did a few years back and go one-on-one, and this can be done virtually. It could be done also face-to-face, of course, preferably. We sit face-to-face, yeah, and we look into each other's eyes, and it may sound kind of cliche or whatever you want to call it, and we think of that emotion for 2 minutes time, and we just exchange eye contact for that moment of time. It was amazing, Matthew, and everyone out there. It was
Yeah.
amazing how much intimacy was gathered, yeah, how much trust I gained for this person who I was getting to know in that brief span of time. We don't even do that often, that prolonged eye contact with people that we are knowing,
Yeah,
our
yeah.
family, our friends like this, yes? Now, yes, interculturalists may say, oh, what? Different cultures have different attitudes towards eye contact, yes. And I'd say that even for those cultures, those more direct cultures in terms of communication,
Yeah.
this would be a challenge for them as well, right? Again, we're getting into the intensity. I want you to feel that deep muscle workout that I've been sweating through each of these last weeks that I've been doing. Yeah.
That,
Or
that
perhaps it's a, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that is amazing. That is amazing. You're reminding me of a couple of things there. There was a guy I knew from Denmark, very direct sort of idea or individual, and his boring, direct eye contact with me was exhausting for me, and it was a lot more than 2 minutes. But also this other idea of power. So someone in Niger said, if I maintained eye contact with my father for more than about 3 seconds, he might sort of hit me over the head. Because in that micro context, it would be a power challenge. So I guess
Mm.
we do this with permission.
That's interesting. Yes, this is true. I thought of all kind of disclaimers, Matthew. One of
Protect
them is that
yourself.
I'm
The
not a
first rule.
psychologist. Yes,
Yeah.
and yes, you're right. We would definitely have to consider the power differential as we do in any of our trainings, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
How likely is it for people of, I don't know, hierarchy one, right, to really express themselves as fully, as abundantly if they're with people of, a top tier hierarchy, right? How likely is that going to happen? What
Yeah.
kinds of changes are we going to? We need to be strategic about this, of course, just like any other time we're bringing people together, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I hear what you're saying, yeah. But thankfully, this man is not going to have his father in his training, right? He may have he may have instead his counterpart across the waters, yeah, or across the office, who is a bit senior in age. He may have that. He may have his counterpart who is, same age. He may have a woman sitting across from him, right? And this is going to be multicultural. It's going to be multinational. It's going to be multi all kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
Again, there's a challenge in this. Another idea I had, for instance, and I'll get to the satisfaction piece because we don't want pain without satisfaction, right?
Mm.
Another thing I thought about is what if we have, for instance, a scenario? So a lot of times before I'm going into trainings, I'll ask people, what is it that you're experiencing? Give me some kind of anecdote here. And I'll ask a few people for this at least, right? I want to anonymize this anecdote. I want to make it such that we can get into it and talk about it without getting into the nitty gritty of some particular political thing that happened previously, but we can also feel the same emotions that it evokes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So what if we role played that? What if I was myself in that scenario? What if I was the person with that I'm getting so much frustration from? Right. There's a pain point that we're all having. What if we could choose that pain point and lean into it? Right. I want to
Yeah.
develop muscle. I want to develop that confidence. Here's how we can do it. So in terms of satisfaction, I thought, all right, it's compatible with what's contemporary. We like an app for everything. And the workout that I'm doing, there is an app for it, but I'm doing the hard work, right? In no way am I suggesting that this is an easy breezy, a way out, but it is quick and dirty, if you will, right? Let's get in and let's get out. So whereas we've had 2-day trainings in past, in which I do regularly still, perhaps we have a start with half a training. Half a training, get it over and move on, right? Maybe that warm up is 20 minutes, maybe it's 30 minutes. And I'm speaking figuratively here. Maybe
Yeah.
that workout is 1 hour. We're in that intensity of several activities that have been handpicked, that have been customized for you and your group, right? To get at that confidence that you want to get at, to get at that feeling that's relevant and resonant to that particular group. And then that processing, that cooling down is where we make sense of it, right? Where we actually build that muscle, right? How can we apply this? How can we use this feeling towards better results, right? Personally, etc. When I was looking at this slide deck last night, I was trying to figure out what I meant by this second point when I built the slide. Internal, external control. But for those of you that are not familiar, internal and external control is all about the extent to which we have the, I don't know, opportunity or ability to manage the environment around us, right? So do we believe in internal control? Hey, I got this, right? This is my, and I'm in US America, and this is my ship, right? I am the sailor, the captain of this ship. I navigate here, right? You know, if you want to, you can build yourself up. It's only about those choices and changes that you make, right? Um, and and external control is all this other stuff that's happening while we're trying to manage what's going on, right? We do have to have that personal choice and that personal commitment to change. But also there's all this intercultural complexity going on. Yeah. I don't know, Matthew, you know, what you're meaning all the time by what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Or what it means that you didn't do this, or what it means that you did do that, right?
Yeah.
And how can we balance our needs, right, for internal and external control in the workplace, right? Where with some people, we're supposed to be very, very much managing what we're doing, right? The bottom line is that we need to get at personal ownership. So since I've started burst workouts, and I've been doing this nearly every day, I say that with a little bit of guilt because I just want to get myself at it every day to keep that commitment.
Yeah.
I've thought of other ways that I can contribute to my health, right? I've considered being a vegan.
Oh my word.
I know, my goodness. And I was out playing in New York this past weekend, and fortunately there were plenty of vegan places to visit, but my goodness, it was a bit of a challenge. But I'm taking on that challenge. Do I want to do this to myself? Do I want to become vegetarian? What are the choices that I want to make in terms of food? And it carries over also, I think, into this idea of burst trainings. Yeah, the idea that, wow, I went through a really intense experience with that burst training. Yeah, I learned something about myself. I learned something about the colleagues with whom I'm working. I learned something about whoever. Do I want to take this next step in this relationship? I'm now more conscientious about the health of my ecosystem here,
Yeah.
right? Not just my, oh, I'm just doing this action, that action. No, I'm more conscientious because I earned this knowledge, right? What am I going to do with it? So go ahead. I think I'll
No,
pause there.
no, I was going to say that it's almost that idea of if you stay within the zone, nothing changes. If you leap too far outside, then we have chaos and loss and so forth. But it's this across this timeline, it's a little piece every day, and there's this consistency. So with this burst changing, is this forever, or is this a finite period? With the vegan thing, is that forever? Is that a lifestyle change, or is that a temporary burst? What are you thinking?
Well, with the vegan thing, I thought I'd try it for 1 week and then reevaluate.
Yeah, exactly.
With the burst training thing, you know, I signed up for a 6-month subscription to this particular
Wow.
online plan that I purchased, yeah,
Yeah.
and then I'll reevaluate then. You know, a lot of times in business, at least, and in other areas of work, whether it's nonprofits, certainly academic, we like to create measures, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm still working the knot of idea of measures around this, right? But I know from my own workouts that I'm getting results. I feel the tenderness in my muscles like an hour later. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I were in a training like this, yeah, if I'm in that high intensity, when I have been in these experiences, right, I don't need someone externally to come and measure that for me. It is something that I feel internally, right? It directs my choices in different moments spontaneously even. So is it forever? I don't know. Probably not for everyone. I don't know for me, right? But for now, this is what's working. I want to get at a certain point in my health and in my mental well-being,
Yeah.
right? And this is the solution that I'm using to get there, right? Physically, right? Emotionally, because we know that so much of what we're doing day to day in our workplace is emotions. We don't leave those at the door when we come in, right? Even though we have these very effective workplaces where it may not be appropriate to share your emotions, right? And you're in UK, Matthew, I'm in US, and this is very true for us. In other places, not so true, right?
Yeah.
But the idea is how can we, again, progress ourselves, advance ourselves? What can we do in the stint that we have for the foreseeable future for this particular season? Maybe we're going towards a goal. Maybe we just want to boost our confidence. And I've been feeling, and I know that when we talked some weeks ago, Matthew,
Yeah.
I've been feeling like I really want to evolve myself, right? So I strive to be a reflective practitioner. Yes,
Yeah.
this means that, you know, like my colleagues at Dublin, we go and we do our own endeavor, right? we lean into that own personal choice and challenge for ourselves, however we may do it, right? And I'm just wanting more from myself and from my experience generally, and this is what I choose to do, right? Maybe some others will choose to do it for a period of time as well to get at results that you can feel and that you can work with.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm building up this sort of picture of this decision, this commitment. Is this? Do you think this is an easier commitment to make because there is this sort of short thing? There's an outcome. There's a result. You know, the vegan week, giving up something for us giving up something for a week is not impossible. And guess how
Uh,
you're going to feel? I guess on day 6 you're going to feel better. For most people, that would be their experience. That sort of positive feedback cycle. So
mm,
psychologically, it seems to be that the barriers are getting lower, but the balance to that is the intensity. But
that's right.
overall, are we designing something? Are you thinking or feeling something that is easy to step into? Is that the maybe some of the concept behind it?
Well, I think easy is relative,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I'm thinking of results. And actually, when I was developing this idea, I remembered back in high school when I had these long, skinny legs and was running on the track team. Yeah.
yep.
And I ran all through high school and for part of college until I discovered dance and really got into that more. Um, I was a long distance runner, right? So I was running these near marathons, right, on the track, right?
Wow.
You really have to strategize around that. And I was running, running, running. I got tired of running in circles. But that's what I did because that was what I was good at, right, at the time. And that's because that's what the team needed of me. That was my skill. That was my contribution, right? Um, Turns out one day we're having a track meet and I mess up. I think that I mess up in a good way, actually. I think that we're on a different kind of relay and we're behind and I have to run like hell. And so I receive that baton and I take off, right? And I think I'm doing an 800, which is 800 meters, 200, two times around that track, right?
Yeah.
And I am going at it and I sprint, right? So I've changed from this marathon runner, this long distance runner, to this sprinter because that's what the team needed. That's what I needed to get to in my personal best to win that particular race, that particular moment. Now, when I get to the end, what I thought was the end, and I'm thinking we've won that relay. I've done my part. Yeah, my team member takes off and does the last leg for me. Oops! But what we discovered in that was that I could sprint.
Yeah,
Right? I
yeah,
could do something different for the team and for myself. Right? Was it easier? I don't know. It was more intensity. It was shorter. Right? So yeah, you have to
yeah.
balance it for yourself. But I became a sprinter after that. My coach wouldn't let me do anything different, right? This is
Yeah.
what the team needed, right? And this is how I could challenge myself as well, right? So again, easy is relative. I don't care what you call it. When I'm doing my workout, I'm not thinking easy. I'm thinking I can do anything for 20 seconds and it's almost over, right? I want to get through this. I want to gain that muscle, right? And in the context of culture burst, I want to gain that confidence. I want to have that experience instead of talking about it in some kind of high level, however many, feet aerial view look at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I want to move on and think more conscientiously again about what my choices are later that day, even the next day, and how I can continue to build that muscle. I've sweat for it, and I want it to get to its best fruition, if you will.
Yeah, iteration. Yeah, cool.
Does this respond to your question in some way? And I'm wondering what other questions are coming up.
No, exactly, and a call to everyone out there. So do feel free to type away. We've had a couple of things, mainly about the sound, which is fine. Type away now. Type away. What do you want to ask, Malii? What is your experience? You haven't got a comment. Do you feel something so far on an emotional level? Actually, while you're typing and doing some stuff there, I think that's so interesting, isn't it? We try to intellectualize, but really what is going on, we are feeling all the time. And there's ideas between emotions and feelings, the labeling of these things. So there's the primitive body reaction and our conscious processing of all of this stuff. Let's just see. I think someone has typed a question. Here we go. How to stop yourself from doing too much. Oh, is it possible to become addicted to intensity? Great question.
I love it. Of course it is. Humans are really good at becoming addicted to anything, I think, huh? And how to stop yourself? Maybe we have a, a plan ahead of this when we go in. And I'm thinking that this questioner is talking about the training idea and not the workout idea. I'm not a workout guru. But in terms of the training idea, I don't even know what would be too far, right? I've had people, for instance, cry in training,
Yep.
right? Is that too far? I don't know that it is. I think that they hit what they needed to hit, right? We were going through whatever content, right? We had whatever
Yeah.
request of the participant, yeah, or participants plural, right? And one participant, perhaps they respond in a certain way. Did they go too far for themselves? So there's a certain amount of balance between the maturity of knowing ourselves and this, right, and the exploit or the adventure, right, of going all out. You might cry, right? I hate personally to cry in workplaces, but it's been my learning moment, right, when I have done that, right?
No,
um,
exactly.
are we
And
going too far if we yell? Maybe not, right? I work in workplaces here where I, as a brown woman, I need to consider how I'm going to say things, right? So I just softened my voice just now. And I do this often in corporate experiences that I've had because I want to be heard, right? Because it's not effective if I raise my voice, because there's a certain perception of me as a brown woman in the United States in a professional workspace,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Culture burst, right? And these burst training idea, the burst workout would give you an opportunity to experience the full length of your emotion, right?
yeah.
Maybe I can be more of who I am. Maybe I'm going to get offended. Oh no. But that's part of the practice, right? We offend and we get offended often.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if we get offended often, right? But my goodness, just driving around in my car, I see people really get offended by things, right? And that's just driving, that's just stopping at a stoplight and passing and going, right? What if we're in a training room, right? How far is too far? I don't know. I don't know. I guess I'll still think about those things, but I think some managing expectations on the front end
Yeah.
about what you can expect and what might be too far is something like, let's not get to profanity. Let's certainly not get to physical violence, right? This is not an all out in that way. This is about your mental development. This is about your emotional development, right? That's a healthy place, right? For not only me, but for you as well. So let's take care of each other in this process as well. I hope that gets that question.
No, I was going to say there's a sort of contract, isn't there, of mindfulness and respect, which are probably within an intercultural space. A lot of people would use the word respect, giving feedback, being fairly honest, giving perceptions. When you said that, I felt this, and so forth, the XYZ formula, which is powerful. Very good. I mean, I whiz round British factories, and it would be the objective to work from the age of 20 to 60 without ever crying. Your
Mm,
job and my job is maybe to give permission for these guys to, on a personal or team basis, to explore emotions and to
mm,
dive into the pool of tears and make it safe so they're protected, but they can have something experiential. Often it's memory based, and out of which something extraordinary can come. I know I've had that experience with in many a dry training room. There's been a sort of dramatic moment, so that's something wonderful.
and may I just add, Matthew, Jean Mavrelis, who is lovely and who I work with as well, um, talks about, what does she call it? Conspiracy of politeness. Yeah. And if we're talking about intercultural spaces or even spaces we're going in, we're doing intercultural trainings in an organization, or we're doing diversity trainings, people are so light to touch sometimes, right? And we're not talking about, we're talking about giving a more deep touch to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Let's really dig into what we're feeling and express it. How can we express that? Right? There can be different modes of expression in this particular training, right? It doesn't have to be one activity or another. Some of them can be kinesthetic, right? Some of them can be visual. We can do some talking out of things, right?
Yeah.
But I don't want people. I think this idea will have failed in the training room if people are too polite to one another because they're
Wonderful.
trying to hurt each other's feelings, right?
Yeah.
We have feelings, they're going to get hurt if we choose to, engage them,
Yeah.
right? That may sound, what is the word? Callous, but it is true. It is
Well,
just
you
very true.
can, as a trainer or as a facilitator, as a coach, you can love your work. You can be mature enough to control the experience and
Mm,
want people to go to a deep, temporarily dark place in order to experience something and move on. I mean, we're all trapped. We've all got the brakes. We're driving with the brakes on, aren't we? About our past pain, and we never want to experience that pain again. What does my
mm,
missus say? She's a conflict mediator. Across the snake pit, life gets easier. And the snake pit is sort of crossing your own phobias and fears and stops the inner question which is never answered. Am I good enough? Will they like me? And all that
right.
sort of stuff.
And can I also remind us, I'm just going to go up in the
Yeah,
slide deck here. Can I also remind us that just like my workouts that I'm doing every day, you're getting breaks, right? You see the second bullet?
yeah,
Okay, we have a total amount of time dedicated to this. In the training room, it might not be 15 minutes, it could be more, but it might be an hour's time, right? We're going to do it in segments. We're going to do 20-second hard outs, right? So for those 20 seconds that I'm physically doing my workout, it's 90 to 100% of my energy, right? In the training room when we're doing this particular activity, it's 90% of your energy and your effort, but there's going to be a break, right? We're going to
yeah.
take some breaks. We're not doing intensity for that full hour, right? We're going to take some breaks. We're going to take some reprieves, all right? And then we're going to go back at it. And that's where that muscle is built.
To replenish and refresh. No, sounds good. I tell you, what, we've got another question here. If you want to go for this, how could I use this idea to form long-lasting impressions or make good long-lasting impressions with people that I have just met or will meet for a brief period of time? So this seems to be that this is a different application of the model. Any ideas there, Malii?
Oh, so like a networking thing, maybe?
We could take so working the room. How could we use the burst
Working
formula?
through. Well, that's a different idea. Thanks for that. I was actually just speaking with a friend about this over the weekend. She says, I don't like this networking thing, and I said, yeah, it's really just about having conversations and getting into it. So maybe I'm suggesting something slightly similar. I was in Berlin in May, talking with Wayfair about networking. Actually, I
Yeah,
was invited to do a workshop there, and I really encourage people to just dive into the conversation, right? There are these little superficial things that people like to get to, right? Oh, what is it that you're doing for work? Oh, how is the weather today? Yeah.
yeah.
And I know that you're in London, you're probably talking about the weather a lot, Matthew, but and that's okay, right? But in terms of, really delving in, making a memorable experience and hopefully a
Yeah.
positive, sustained experience with somebody,
Yeah.
ask them something different. Say something like,
Very good.
"Ooh, damn, I had this hard workout this morning. This is what I'm doing, right? This is why I'm doing it. This is the ethic with which I work." Yeah. So telling them something a little bit more meaty about yourself than just that initial
Yeah.
superficial warm up type of thing.
Or that question also, isn't it? What are you up to in the world, which you get to meaning as opposed to habit? There are a number
Mm,
of ways. There's a
mm,
there's a silly one I use when you're sitting down in Dublin or wherever, and it's a fairly packed room. I will turn to someone on the left or the right and say, and whatever the agenda is, it can be very exciting or very boring. I'll say, "Are you excited?" And you always get a reaction. It can be a bad one, it can be a good one, but it's a brilliant conversation starter. And you're
yes,
bypassing the boring, the audit, the order of business on a piece of paper and getting to emotions. And I think that's a bit
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. To just get more deep into it,
yeah,
ask people questions that are unexpected. Why not?
yes, yes. So what have you been asked which has awoken something in you?
About this particular training idea, I think, with whom would this kind of idea work, right? And
Yeah,
so as I'm
yeah,
developing this, I'm asking others as well, who do you think this would work with?
yeah,
What kind of, and in the blog post where I mentioned this as well, a blog post by the same name, Hard Sweaty Workouts, I asked this question of myself as well, and it reads this: what kind of think global, act local professional do you have to want to become in order to accept the mental rigor of a culture burst challenge,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm being asked. You know, what kind of person do you have to want to be to invite this kind of challenge, this kind of pain, if you will, right? But there's going to be pain in all points, right? So what if we choose that and then develop this and move through it, right? I don't know yet what kind of person you need to be. Or another question that comes up is, what
Yeah.
kind of organizational environment
Yeah.
would take an approach like this,
Yeah.
right? Um, yeah, maybe it's progressive, maybe it's not, and they want to kind of get out some of those kinks and those cobwebs and do something
Yeah.
different. Another question about the purpose: how will hitting deeply at an individual's core or an organization's core evolve that individual or evolve that organization? So these are
Wow.
questions that I have that people are asking me as well. You know, what happens when when you ignite this first match, right?
Yeah.
What happens then? What fire builds, right?
But yeah, exactly. Just sort of looking at that, almost answering a few things, and it's about accountability, isn't it? So the worst case scenario is you light the fire, you embolden the vision, and then it's all shut down afterwards by some ultra conservative folk who just get terrified by the answer. So it
Mhm.
really is about some latitude and some permission, maybe in the broader structure and following this. And if we look at those crazy management consultancy ideas that change programs by and large fail because the habit is too ingrained. So there's a lot
Mm,
of these exciting, what we might call, match lighting moments. But it's just what happens after that.
yes, yes. There's a quote that I say to myself sometimes by George Bernard Shaw from the play, I believe, Man and Superman. And I don't know it exactly, but it's something about, um, really, really getting in there and exhausting yourselves, right? Really just carrying the torch forward by basically exhausting the flame that you have to give, right? That's how I feel at the end of a training day. And that's how I feel at the end of my first workout, right? And why not give more of ourselves so that we can just get more out of the immediate experience, right? And it's going to be memorable for us. We don't tend to live like this. What if we lived differently? That's really what
Very
is
good, very good.
kind of
Now, I also there's quite an interesting other end of this. So we are going divergent. We're broad visioning here, and someone's coming in and sort of saying, "Well, hang on, well, what's the overall experience? What's the overall experience? Can everyone connect with this approach? Is there something you can say about an outcome? Is it the start of a journey, or is there some sort of concrete outcome that you've experienced or you think is possible here?"
Okay, so you ask a few questions there. Is this for everyone? What's the outcome? And something else I might have lost. Please remind me.
No, exactly. So yes. So it's the same person who's answered a couple of questions. Let's do it one step at a time. Is this for everybody?
No,
Who would you not use it? Who would you use it with?
no, this is not for everybody. I think this needs to be on a volunteer basis. This cannot
Yeah.
be something that's forced. And there are a good amount of trainings that are required of people, right? Are those trainings for them? Sometimes they're not, right?
Yeah.
Even if the content is for them, maybe the pace is not, right? So I was just faculty last week in Portland at the Summer Institute. There's the Intercultural Communication Institute. They're doing their huge 3-week summer institute just now. And we had some deep content: race and reconciliation, pathways to
That's
reconciliation
right. Yes.
was our content, yes.
You said you were
And
going.
yeah, and I went, and it was exhausting, right? Now, some people wanted to trudge through at a quicker pace than others, right? So the training was for them, yes, but they wanted a different pace, right? And we were always experiencing this as trainers, right? How can I balance the content that was going to really get at people with the pace, with the method in which we're going about it, right? So I'm thinking that this would work best in smaller groups, right? Not groups of 50 or 30 or even
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
25. Yeah, maybe groups of 20 or less, right? And I think that they would have to, again, voluntarily go into this, know what they're getting into, right?
Yeah.
Or the organization that chooses an experience like this for a particular purpose articulates that purpose
Yeah.
to participants, yeah? Says, here's why we invite you to do this.
Yeah.
Here's why, right? And please find your own personal benefit as well, right? Does this continue on a journey? Yes. We don't strip that, like that is not stripped of this kind of experience. Any kind of, in my idea, where are we getting at? Culture burst training really has to be a journey. It's just an intense part of
Yep.
your journey, just like life is oftentimes, right? And can we make those results sustainable? I think yes, if we keep it up, right? If you don't lose it, what does they say? You don't move it, you lose it, right? So
Exactly. Exactly.
you got to keep that muscle up. However you're working to do it. We say a lot of times in the training room or in the field at least, and I've heard it ad nauseum, but it is true. Um, this is a journey towards our intercultural competence, towards our competence around working with difference, right?
And and I see a sort of metaphor here. Imagine if you had a slightly larger group of about 15 or so, there'd be one, two, or three people, at their head voice would be screaming at them, "No, I hate this. I wish it would stop," and so forth. Um, and you're thinking that is a metaphor for resistance to change, for prejudice, for all sorts of things. So this
Mhm.
becomes a model in itself. This becomes a representation of our deeper history, our deeper feelings.
Right. And then we can ask ourselves things in that cool down, like, well, why is it that that bothered me so much?
Exactly.
Why
Here,
is it that I didn't like that activity? Yeah.
yes,
I've
exactly.
had, and I hear you asking a question. I just want to add this last bit.
Yeah, yeah.
I've had people, and I train regularly for a large automotive organization, German based. And I've had people in the training, just predominantly German, saying, I wish that you could just present us with a model and we can get on with it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
And that training is particularly experiential, right? And so, okay, interesting. I've heard this before, right? There's maybe one person every year that says this, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Why is it? Because archetypically in your German educational system, right, you're doing a lot of models, right?
Yep.
You're doing models and you're getting at the facts and you're getting at a cerebral understanding of things. And this is a experiential model, right? This is an experiential understanding of things. What is it about my training, my expectation, right, that's going to color, if you will, my experience? That's part of
Well,
what we can ask ourselves after the experience.
and if you take that model also, people's particular comfort with uncertainty. This is uncertain. This is dangerous. This is out there. So, what would be the stereotype of a lawyer? A lawyer is closing down uncertainty. And so you imagine with a bunch of lawyers, that would be potentially quite a challenge, quite an exciting one if they leapt across the gap. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
cool.
True.
Here we go. A couple of other ideas. These questions get great. Sorry, I'll start again. These questions get great responses from executives who know that pain equals challenge equals efforts, and that gets results. So, what has stretched you outside the box during one of these sessions?
What has stretched me out of the box during a culture burst session?
So, a culture burst session applied, say, in the classroom. There, what's got you to the limit or to the edge?
Well, definitely that experience that I mentioned before with my coach, where we had to have this prolonged eye contact. And this is someone that I
Yeah,
chose to trust to go through this life coach experience. And even still,
yeah,
I don't, really want to let you in that much.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, that pushed me. That really pushed me. Or for instance, when I was in a training room recently, as a trainee, yeah, so that's a different experience. And someone told me what I was not, right? Oh, you're not this, right? And and I sat with that and thought, okay, so this particular moment, right, is about my own challenge with what they are saying, right? They and I don't want to get to I don't want to reveal too many details about what this
No,
was.
no.
But when I'm told something in an environment that really goes against who I am, right? Or when I really lean into something that is about who I am. So in this training last week, and the content is race and reconciliation within the United States, of course, it's going to get
Yep.
gritty. Yeah, and that for that's putting it lightly. So in one of the instances, I'm talking about the level of violence that happened with enslaved peoples in the United States, right? And I'm facilitating, in this example, I'm facilitating this experience of people, and I choose to put on a certain song,
Yep.
right? To evoke emotion. And I choose to read a certain passage from a book that I was reading about a historical account that related to this particular period of violence that we were talking about in the United States. And wow, I felt it as a facilitator. I felt it. And someone asked me afterwards, how do you do that?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
How do you maintain composure when you do that? And it's because I have prepared myself. I still felt it, but I felt strongly enough about getting people, getting ideas to people that I endured it for myself, right?
Yeah.
And then felt it at the break that we took immediately after.
Oh,
And I felt it in my bones at the end of the day, right? So
apply
I
the burst idea, but also the number one rule, isn't it, to protect yourself? But if you broadcast, here we go, if you broadcast any message to 100 people, you are not going to get 100 people being empathic and sympathetic and agreeing and instantly understanding. So there is a process there.
Right. You're not going to get 100% one kind of result, right? I think that if there can be any objectives by the end of this, it's that you're going to have an intense experience. You're going to learn
Yes.
more about X, Y, and Z that's relevant to your work. You're going to learn what triggers you have,
Yep. Yep.
yeah, that lead you to X, Y, Z place. You're going to learn perhaps what triggers other people have, and how you can manage your own and their stuff together
Yep.
collectively, right? No, we're not going to all have the same experience, and we don't do that in any way, any day. Hmm? This is simply something that is something new, and it's applied into a space that we don't usually do it, right? And we get out of it what we put into it. So in my own experience, touching on the last question that we had as well, in my own experience, when I've gotten more out of it, it's because I've given more to it,
Yeah.
because I've opened myself to that experience, right? And in that opening, it may be filled with splendor and wonder, right? And in that opening, it may be filled with hurt and pain, right? And then we process that. Let's make something of that.
So it's almost that positive vulnerability idea. If I open myself up, your looking into the eyes thing was a perfect example of that. Extreme discomfort or doubt or other things. If you open yourself up to pain, it's almost the converse. There's a payback, which is also the pleasure. I mean, we've got a quote from
Mm,
Patricia here: "Pain is a greater motivator than pleasure." Or again, the snake bit: we've got to cross something to learn. We've got to cross something to be free. But also,
mm,
the never-ending questions. The facilitator and the delegate will never be free of some pain. Some memories are burnt too deep. It's almost how we choose to hold them in the moment, or communicate, or acknowledge, or do something.
definitely. And I don't want us to forget the word satisfaction.
It's
I
not
don't
all
want
pain.
to be
Yeah.
what is etched in, right? So there is something, even, you've heard of a runner's high. When I have been
Yeah.
running, and I don't do it
Yeah.
anymore, when I have been running intensely for a long period of time, there is a lightness that my body
Yeah.
feels,
Yeah.
right? Because I have my pelvis slanted forward in the right way, and I have my torso, erect, and I have my
Yeah.
arms swaying the right way. There's a certain structure that I give myself, right? Which I've worked to build and to maintain. And within that structure, yeah, which maybe initially caused me this some initial suffering, yeah, I can find a freedom, right?
Yes.
So burst training is more, or culture burst training is more about the intensity. Yeah. A lot of times when we go into these scenarios, when we're doing intercultural training or we're doing D&I, diversity and inclusion
Yeah.
training, people do feel those pain points, but that doesn't mean that I can also feel intensity of pleasure or satisfaction as well.
Yeah.
Wow. What if they had a really positive experience in there? How can we recreate that? Right? What if the conditions were such that we could have a more lucrative, and I speak lucrative in terms of experience,
Yeah.
satisfaction, right? More of the time, right? So it's about intensity and leaning into the intensity of it.
Yeah.
I appreciate the quote about pain, and I want to remind us that it's about intensity and what we choose to yield from that intensity.
Exactly. So here's another part from the same person. I will tell my participants that I welcome all challenges as I will work through them and with them. And I think that's quite powerful, isn't it? So if you're brave enough, it seems to be about courage, you will take on anything, but
Mm,
recognize that some things are not going to be resolved. But again, leaping to the positive, there is those you must have experienced in your classroom, the eureka moment when someone breaks through, when they reframe something as an opportunity, as a growth moment, as they can sort of box in some nastiness and move forward, or be free, almost escape the gravity of something pretty brutal.
def-
That's very pleasing. It's very pleasing as a facilitator.
Definitely. And in terms of challenge, I like that quote that the trainer said. Yeah, so you can challenge me. Okay, that's cool, right? But think of me as your personal trainer, right? You can challenge me or you can challenge yourself more, right? What's going to be most sustainable?
Oh,
Right?
very
And I've
good,
certainly,
very good.
I've certainly been challenged in the training room, right? And I remember a participant that I had once named Lauren. He was working at a large organization that puts out food products, and he was trying to figure out why he cared about this, and
Wow.
was and was really vocal in the classroom, like, why do we care about this, right? And there was a bit of sparring. Mm,
Yeah.
and I took it on, right? Because I'm like that, if you will, and I don't box, but that punching bag, and then your trainer holds it for you, and you're punching, punching, punching into it. Yeah. Okay, that's what he was doing. I
Yeah.
help absorb that shock, right? But I'm gonna stand there with you, right? And keep that challenge with you as well, right?
Yeah.
Because the challenge is really to yourself. The challenge is really to your own understanding. There's a quote I read once about breaking the shell of your understanding, breaking the shell of your understanding,
No.
right? And if we can get to that, then that's where we really get somewhere. You can challenge me all you want in the training room. I'm there for that, right? I give all of myself, like
Yeah.
that George Bernard Shaw quote. That's just my ethic, right? And if you're spending more time challenging me than you are challenging yourself, then you're not getting the most out of this experience.
Very good, very good. No, I think that's it, isn't it? And you and I will step up to the chance. You have the naughty participant who's going for it, and there's a look in the eye or there's a tone in the voice that this is not really the agenda. This is the provocation to start an interesting dialogue. Or there's the tricky character who's just being very difficult. But with
Right.
that first one, it's really inspiring to take them on the journey, and probably everyone else has ignored them, or they've got some rude nickname, and they've been written off. I mean, don't you find that there's someone who's being tricky? There's a lot of pain, and you think, hang on, there's some salvation at the end of this. It's worth investing in. Do you ever find that?
Mm, I do. I do find this, yes, for sure.
And then the payback is there. Maybe it's the first time they've been acknowledged, or they've had that feeling acknowledged, or something. And that's a
Hmm.
special time. That's a special time.
It is.
That's
It
when we
is.
feel it's a privilege to be doing our day job.
Exactly. And I also want to just, remind us in this conversation that, yeah, we're having this intense experience, and then we're having the cool down, right?
Good.
That's when, by this time, I'm sweating. Yeah. And I sweat for a while after, actually, because it's that I've really built up that work, right? And so, using that metaphor, going into the actual training room, yeah, we're still sweating from the experience, right? We're catching our breath now, right? We're asking ourselves, what happened just now to
Yeah.
me, us, right? We're processing that. Maybe we're doing a written reflection. We don't do that enough as adults. We just move from thing to thing to thing. Hmm?
Yep. 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 Yep.
Maybe we're having a conversation where we really get into the debrief of, how the group dynamic changed. Yeah. I
Yep.
remember doing something called a circle process once when I was in grad school, and some people may know of it as way of circle. I've done this also with um, a community-based Baha'i group I'm a part of, community practice, where we talk about race and culture and how we can really improve our skill building in that. And we do this thing sometimes called way of circle. or circle practice. And we sit in a circle, as you can imagine, and we have a talking piece, yeah? And there's a question that your facilitator will ask you, and you each by each either choose to speak to that question or
Yep.
you choose to hold the silence, right? That's a processing of this,
Yep.
right? That's a, coming to a collective, bless you, wisdom of, what happened to us as well as what happened to me. How can we use this experience,
Yeah.
right? How can we use this newfound knowledge, having done something new to ourselves, with one another, right? To come to something more grand when we leave this room. How are we
Yeah.
going to treat each other when we leave this? Yeah. How are we going to remind ourselves of this experience?
Exactly. Yes. Positioning it usefully so we can, and also a common reference, isn't it? So if you're going to meet those guys again in the canteen, you can get some of that energy back in the future.
Exactly. And I think also the for me in this idea of the burst training, the cool down, that last portion, right? So again, we have that introductory, here's what we're going to do, get ready, go, right? And
Yeah.
then we have the go portion, that workout, that intensity with some breaks in between. And then that cool down is we want to figure out how we can apply this, right? It's not just for the
Yeah.
sake of the experience, right? What's the utility of this exercise that we've just had? What's the utility of it? How are we going to apply this, right? What do we know now that we didn't know before? And how are we going to make practical this new learning? Maybe we go through this, right? 2 times, 3 times, right? Instead of again having regular trainings 2 days each, maybe we have a few of these half day or 3/4 day burst trainings,
Yeah.
right? And we're always going to be applying it to what happens, right? A lot of people think that this work is quite abstract and cerebral and soft. Mm-mm. When done well, in my opinion, this work is quite practical.
Yeah.
How do we apply these results? How do we make it quite concrete? What are we going to do and say differently? We don't need standard operating procedures. Some people choose to do it, right? But when I get into an action plan, right, or a strategic plan, right, how am I going to apply and then make actionable the learning that I've made?
Absolutely.
That's what makes this work.
Yeah. Now, as you say, it's not in the moment. It is in the moment, but it's not for the moment. It is to carry forward, isn't it?
Exactly. I like that. I'm going to think about that next time I do my workout. It's not for the moment. It's for the moments and the days and the weeks after. That's what
Yeah.
we're doing.
Well, isn't there some idea that if you have 6 months of, say, aerobic capacity increase, so you're doing one of these workouts, there is a permanent change. So there's a carry forward.
Right, right. I think so. This is what I've experienced so far, right? When I've endeavored into any intense experience, whether I'm
Yeah.
flying to some other country and learning a new language or working abroad or, trying something totally new. Yeah, there's something that that stays with me through that,
Yeah.
right? There's something I can draw upon later. I have an endurance now that I did not have before.
No, exactly. That capacity, an endurance, a different perspective. So well, let's just audit your on day one when you felt that pain. Was there a sort of negative thought? Oh my word, I've got this every day. Was there a sort of negative emotion? And then we'll sort of get a better one at the end of your session. What was the most
Not
negative thought that
day
first day?
one. So day 24 too. I'm on day 24, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, there's some negative emotion. That's healthy. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, do I wish that it was over? Yes. Yes,
Well, that's
I
interesting. So you're not addicted to the endorphins just yet.
I am addicted to the results. I
Good.
love the feeling of I have done this, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I love the feeling of I am 1/3 of the way through. I am 2/3 the way through. I am done, right? I like the feeling of I have accomplished this, right? And
true.
I love the feeling also, and I think other people who actually do physical workout as well, I love that tenderness that I feel later. I really do. It
Yeah,
reminds me that I put in that hard work, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so carrying over this idea, into what we can do with it and, this burst training idea, um, I I'm going to remember that that was a tough experience, right?
Yeah.
I'm also going to remember that there was a lot of reward. I remember in grad school, for instance, there was a guy named Kelsey, and I don't think he would mind me saying this, and so that's why I'm mentioning his name. He actually just had a baby, so congrats,
Yeah.
Kelsey. Um, we went at it. We went at it. And it was about communication styles. And it was a quite intense experience. And we were not within the confines and the protection, if you will, the safety of a training room. We
Yeah.
were working on an assignment together,
Okay.
right? And we had another guy working with us, Bakhtiar. And the three of us had a really intense experience, even though it was Kelsey and I that butted heads most
Mm.
often. Yeah. So Kelsey is US American, white male. I am US American, black female. And Bakhtiar is Tajik. Yeah.
Magic. Yeah.
He's from Tajikistan. Mm. And Kelsey and I had really different communication styles, and there was this even encouraged me to look up communication styles. Right, we talk about this thing called active learning. Oh my God, gag me. Um, active listening rather is when we don't interrupt the speaker, and when they speak and then we speak, and then right. Okay, that's a certain cultural value,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Yep.
That's fine. And right, I have certain cultural values of my own that I bring to the communication space, right? So Kelsey and I were speaking. I was quite engaged with the topic. I was quite involved with doing this with him, and he was offended in that conversation because he thought that I was interrupting him. That was his experience.
Okay.
Okay. Valid, cool, all right. And I was frustrated because I was saying, no, I'm engaged in this. I'm a part of your team. I'm in this with you. Why are we having this struggle, right? But because perhaps we were in grad school on a campus that encouraged conversation like this, and because we were open to it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We stayed for the conversation, right?
Yeah.
We really got into it. I remember, when we were writing our assignment about this, we stayed up late in the computer room working this out. And I don't think I would have had that experience anywhere else, but I had it with Kelsey. And I remember that still, and I respect him for it, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Had a difficult time. We have different ways still, I'm sure, of going about our communication, whether it's direct and engaged in the way that I do it, or direct and engaged in the way that he does it, right? And it was tough, right? But we got something out of it. Yeah, and we promised each other that we would go to each other's weddings. The three of us, yes.
That's nice.
Uh,
That's nice.
yeah, yeah, there's something lasting there.
Very good. So yeah, professional persistence very much coming in there, and I love the reframe, isn't it? Just the word interruption. Interruption can mean passion, or it can mean rudeness and etiquette, foul play. So that's nice. That's
Exactly.
nice.
It can be engagement. So, my organization, my company's name is Engage Between,
Yeah.
right? How is it that we engage between people, between place, between purpose? We do it differently. We do it in different ways, right?
Yeah.
And if we're trying to get to common success, right? If we're trying to get to common success, we're going to engage differently, and we need to allow for that, right? So I'm hoping that this first training idea, and I invite people to have this in their rooms. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about how we can apply this to your context, right?
No.
That we can, that we can do it in a way that works for you. Um, we can do it in a way that really helps people engage in the full spectrum of who they are, right? And with the full topic as it is, right? With their full capacity as people. We don't stop being people because we enter the workplace. We're supposed to be, some kind of widget. Yeah, it doesn't, we're not a widget like this. It doesn't work like that, right? How can we engage fully between ourselves and with ourselves?
Lovely. We are over time, which is good because it means there's tons of content. We've had quite a lot of questions, so I'm going to do two things. I'm going to ask you a question about getting in contact with you. Anyone out there who's still here? A lot of people are still on the line, which is always fantastic. The sign of a very good show. Any last
Thank you all.
questions? So type away any last questions. As I can, mainly, how can anyone get in contact with you and continue the dialogue? Do you want to go to the context slide that you've got there?
Sure,
Who
I'll
do
just
you want to
stream
engage
through.
with? What do you want to engage about?
Yes, so I'll just stream through again so people can get a brief recap. This photo I intentionally chose, by the way, because
It's there.
engaging is not
It's there.
about being pretty, right? It's not about pretty emotion. It's about emotion and intensity that gets to results.
Yes. Very. Yeah, it's there. It's there.
Yeah. So here's how people can reach me.
Yeah.
right? Brown at engagebetween.com, Brown with no E. I also have a post related to this conversation on my website. That's www.engagebetween.com. There'll be an audio introduction there, so don't be afraid. If you go to the blog section, or if you just go to www.engagebetween.com/blog, you can go directly to the most recent blog, which is Hard Sweaty Workouts. Also within the Sieta Europa group, for those that are tapped into
Yeah.
that, you can continue to engage there. I know, Matthew, you posted, and so did I within
Yeah.
this group. And if you scroll down a bit on that page, you can just engage. Yeah, this idea worked for me. This idea did not work for me. Let's keep working on,
Yeah.
how this might work, etc., etc. So anywhere you'd like to post more, if you'd like to post more on my blog site, which is again in the middle bullet here, there's space for comment. If you'd like to write me directly, I welcome it all. If you'd like to work together on this in some way, shape, or form, let's do it.
No, exactly. I think, and thank you. That's a generous offer, isn't it? Extending the hand of cooperation and participation. So, broadcasting out there, and this will be on the recording as well. We'll put the recording somewhere so people have access in the future. I think this is the challenge you set people is they've got this sometimes an inherited, rather prescriptive training formula. This is a
Mm,
real challenge. How can we shake it up, change it, make it more emotional, whilst acknowledging the intellectual, getting into the emotions of change and resistance and all sorts of things, pushback. You've given us some very powerful examples today, in order to get to the result, to get to the breakthrough, to get to the vision, to get to the outcome. And so the
mm,
challenge for everyone, will they apply? Can they apply? Where's the resistance right now? Maybe to have that conversation as well. So that's
yes.
powerful. So everyone is so in awe that they haven't written any questions, or they've just thought it was so clear that there's nothing left. There's no question left to ask. That's the way I see it. That's the way I see it. Maley, this has been extraordinary. I love the style. It's been loose. It's been wonderfully interactive, and everyone's had a lot of choices. We had a decent percentage of people on the line who've have asked questions, so that's brilliant. So let's keep it going. Let's do what we can. But for now, we really should respect people's time. People are time scarce. We're in capitalism. Let's never forget that.
All right.
But Maylee, thank you. You put this together. You've shared your experiences in two worlds: the sweaty world and the more formal world, with groups and so forth. So heartfelt thanks for that. I know our paths will cross soon enough, which is brilliant. Looking forward to that. So thank you
Yeah,
for your effort, your investment in us, and hopefully the payback will come in love, respect, and possibly a bit of business as well. And
lovely.
let's see what we can do. So thank you very much for your time.
Yes. I'd like to reiterate, thank you again for inviting me. Thank you for all those who've joined in this moment and who will join in at a later moment. There are all kinds of ways to get towards that competence, that cultural competence. And whether we do it this way or another way, I'm glad that we're doing it, right? So thank you for endeavoring with me, and I look forward to a hard, sweaty workout with you all sometime soon.
Exactly. Maley Brown, thank you very much. And thanks everyone for plugging in and participating. You have helped make this a wonderful webinar. Thanks very much, everybody. I'll say goodbye. Thanks.